Are Anteaters OP from the TierZoo? Let's find out. I was like, this doesn't look real. It is CGI. Also, parry, quickly parry.
Ants are one of the most overpowered factions in the game. Their go-wide-you social strategy is essentially unbeatable, to the point where they control wide swaths of the overworld pretty much uncontested. Even the human build, the undisputed top tier in the current meta, has trouble
I don't know much about anteaters, but they look so funny.
keeping ants at bay. And with their huge variety of incredible abilities, from acidic projectiles and powerful stingers to coordinated attack strategies and terraforming abilities, I don't think it's much of a surprise that ants are such a meta-defining force. And yet, there's one build which can obliterate
Ants are crazy. I need to watch the ant tier list or our Ants OP video.
an entire colony in only a few minutes, the Anteater. But does having a super favorable matchup against one of the game's top tier builds actually translate into the Anteater being top tier itself? There's so much more to the Anteater build than just being able to solo an entire colony of ants with ease. So in today's video, we'll discuss all the abilities and weaknesses of the Anteater build to determine
Look how cute he is!
Anteaters are only playable on the South America server, in both jungle and savanna biomes. And this is not an easy server to try to carve a niche into. I know I drone on a lot about how OP African builds are, but the Amazon rainforest is home to some of the most fearsome predators in the game, including the snake build with the largest size, and the felid build with the most powerful bite, among many other
That poor capybara!
incredibly dangerous predators. Meanwhile, the Anteater's closest living relative is the sloth, a build with so many devastating flaws that I currently rate it as the mammal furthest down on the tier list.
The sloths are really funny. The sloths are so ridiculous.
So how is it that the Anteater is able to survive such a hostile metagame? Well, they may be closely related to the pathetic moss-covered slugs that Human Faith builds named one of the 7 deadly sins after. But they're also
no, sloths are so cute, but they're so silly.
related to this, Megatherium, the gigantic ground sloth that was capable of one-shotting a saber-tooth. And in my opinion, Anteaters take after this type of sloth. To see what I mean, let's look at their stats. There is some variation among different Anteater builds, which we'll get into later in this video.
Wait, there's different types of anteaters? I didn't even know that.
But for now, we're going to focus on the giant Anteater. Pulling up the analysis, 2 things jump out right away. The first is their shockingly high HP stat. While they don't have any major form of armor, the Anteater can still shake off a surprising amount of damage, even from attacks that might normally one-shot most players. This is crucial as it allows the Anteater a chance to survive ambushes by jaguars, which is pretty incredible given that jaguars frequently one-shot crocodilians. But this is also extremely important because it provides an opportunity for the Anteater's other surprisingly high stat to become relevant, that stat being their attack power.
He's got thick boy skin. Yeah, he does. There's an ant species that has a global empire. A global empire? Whoa. Anteater has the XQC side shoot? Oh my god.
This attack power stat might look like a mistake, especially given that Anteaters don't even have teeth and are completely locked out of using the move Bite. However, once you get past the
Wait, anteaters have no teeth? I mean, they don't need to chew ants, they just swallow them whole.
head and look down, you realize that at the end of their massive gorilla arms, Anteaters have pickaxe-shaped claws as big as those of a grizzly bear, except the Anteater's claws are even sharper because they walk on their knuckles to avoid wearing them down. These incredible weapons are what allow the Anteater to tear through the cement-like walls of termite mounds with ease. But they come with the nice side benefit of being able to absolutely eviscerate any player who fails to kill them in one hit. Their slashes can easily deal lethal damage, so any predator looking to ambush an Anteater needs to make sure they have what it takes to
They don't have to, but they have the most powerful mouth cheeks? Really? Because the suction, right?
finish the job before the Anteater can counterattack. And this threat alone is often enough to dissuade attacks in the first place. While the Anteater's matchup with the Jaguar is of course important, it wouldn't be fair to the Anteater player base if I didn't comment on their matchup versus you social insect colonies. The Anteater's 2-foot-long tongue is covered in a glue-like substance and can flick in and out over 150 times per minute, which can take
That is some tongue action there. Also, I don't imagine ants being very nutritious.
Take out dozens of insects per flick and decimate a colony in no time. However, similar to their sloth brethren, anteaters opted for a slower metabolism. This comes with downsides, which we'll cover later, but it does mean that they don't need to consume an entire colony of ants, and can actually leave the colony in a damaged but recoverable state. This is a highly sustainable method of farming XP because it ensures that the anteater player can simply return to the same termite mound or anthill later on, tear into it again, and the colony will have replenished its supply of workers enough that they can just do the same thing again.
Ants have more protein per pound of beef. Would you eat ants? Chat, would you eat ants?
Also means the anteater doesn't need to be at any one colony for very long, which is good because despite how powerful their offensive tools
Mosquito burger, you know what? If you like it, you like it. I'm a vegetarian, so I wouldn't eat the mosquito burger.
are at destroying a colony of insects, anteaters don't actually have any unique defensive abilities to avoid the damage from the swarm of militant insects they've just provoked, and have to rely solely on their HP to soak up the damage. Of course, as mentioned prior, because of their high HP stat, anteaters are well equipped to tank a lot of hits. But the acid attacks launched by termites and ants certainly aren't something they can just ignore for extended durations. The rest of the anteater stats are fairly lackluster. Anteaters aren't as sluggish as sloths, but because of their slow metabolism, they do have a below average movement speed. Given that they've spec'd into massive claws on their forelimbs, rather than more mobility favoring options like paws or hooves, I don't think this low speed is too surprising. It's a worthy trade-off in my opinion. Their stealth stat is also middle of the
They're so funny looking, but they're so cute.
road. They don't stick out as bad as some builds, but aren't the best camouflaged either. The anteater can hide under its bushy tail, disguising itself as a bush while also shielding itself from the cold. But as far as plant-style disguises go, there are certainly more impressive displays out there. The anteater's intelligence isn't great either. They'd form quite a formidable force in groups, yet rarely
those are the small anteaters.
engage in team strategies, if ever. Their last main weakness is their poor eyesight. It's a good thing they don't go down in one hit, because the tiny eyes on the sides of their heads do not give them the best odds at detecting an ambush before the attacker is within striking range. Next, let's delve into some of the individual variants of the anteater. The giant anteater is by far the most powerful, at the cost of its mobility. The giant anteater is the only variant that lacks the ability to climb trees. Despite their
He can't climb.
claws being phenomenal for hooking into trees, giant anteaters simply are too cumbersome to venture into the canopy.
They're just too
There are two other
chunky.
variants of the anteater build, and both variants are much better at climbing. First is the Tamandua. This mid-sized anteater sports a slightly lower base power and hit point stat than the giant anteater, but in exchange it has unlocked a powerful new ability, a prehensile tail.
Look at it! It has a prehensile tail!
This perk allows the user to use its tail essentially as a fifth appendage, granting it additional resistance to being knocked down while browsing high up in the treetops. Because of its lower HP stat, this build can't tank acid damage as well as the giant anteater, and so it needs to avoid high tier ant builds like the leafcutter ant. The final
It's so cute!
variant is the pygmy anteater, a
I don't know how I feel about this one. This one looks kind of creepy.
nocturnal build that invests more into its stealth than other stats, drastically cutting its bulk and
Its eyes are kind of creepy.
damage in turn. In my opinion, the pygmy anteater is a bit too similar to the sloth build for me to consider it competitively viable, but to each their own. Although the ability to climb does come in handy for escaping predators, the giant anteater doesn't seem to miss it much. While the other variants need to worry about attacks from eagles, the giant anteater's bulk is enough to protect it from most threats. Its matchup versus the jaguar is still pretty risky, but it's better than most. So I'm going to give the giant anteater a rating of A tier, while the Tamandua gets a rank of B tier, and the pygmy anteater gets a D tier rank.
Yeah.
One of the most effective ways to lock in a high placement on the tier list is to have high base stats. And while most stats require millions of years of evolution to change, intelligence is one of the few stats which can be leveled up, provided you have the right sort of training. In today's meta, abilities like coding and mathematics are extremely useful. They're tough to learn, unless you got a really effective course designed to intuitively.
This is gonna be an ad for oh my god, what's that website that you can learn stuff? Not Squarespace. It's like
guide you through difficult concepts. That's precisely where today's sponsor, Brilliant, comes in.
Oh no, it's not. It's not who I was thinking of it. It's Brilliant.
Brilliant is an online learning platform which uses fun, interactive courses to help you level up those science and engineering skills. I don't know about you, but the way I've learned best is in a low-pressure environment where I'm free to make as many
The doggo trying to go across
mistakes
the
as I want.
bridge.
It's how I learned video editing, it's how I learned 3D animation, and now, thanks to Brilliant,
I didn't know he 3D animated this. That's amazing.
it's also how I'm learning coding and data science. Instead of spending huge amounts of money and getting slapped with disheartening grades every time you struggle to nail something on the first try, you can go at your own pace and see helpful explanations whenever you need. If this sounds good to you,
this
you
is
can
pretty
try
cool.
Brilliant completely free for 30 days. But don't worry, you don't need to speedrun the entire library in just a month to save money, because the first 200 of you to visit my link
See, it seems too good to be true, guys. It seems too good to be true.
get 20% off the annual membership. That's brilliant.org/TierZoo. Thanks again to Brilliant.
But I wanted to learn coding. I tried to do online videos, but it's really hard if you don't have any understanding of coding.